1888 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is, and will continue to be, home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders in action and acknowledging the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Any members have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I'll get a mover for the adoption of minutes, please. We see Councillor Bauer. Any questions or polls? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. And that passes. For the consent agenda, the following items have been pulled: 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.10, and 4.11. Can I get a mover for the balance, which is 4.5 and 4.9? I see Mayor Collier, and we will start the vote. Some person hasn't voted. Perfect. We are good to go then. Council, at my discretion, I'm just going to move some items around based on Mayor Collier has a previous engagement at 2 p.m. So we're just going to get some important or some ones he wants to pull first. So we'll actually start with 4.6 ODS 2024-24 Contract Award Town Hall Accommodation Strategy. Mayor Collier, could you request?
Thank you, Chair. And I guess, Mr. Meredith, or to whoever wants to answer this. So we have an unbudgeted capital item of $591,500, which looks like an accommodation study. And I guess my first question is, why are we doing over $500,000 unbudgeted capital project? I assume it has already been done.
Through the Chair to Mayor Collier, the original allocation of $591,000 was a unbudgeted capital project from 2022. There was a report initially that was presented to council that spoke to a three-phase project that would implement sort of a transformation or a transition from our existing office furniture to a more modern and updated sort of furniture setup. So this is part of the phase one component to that. So the 591 was initial, sort of best guess back in 2022 as we were coming out of COVID to modernize our furniture. And sort of as we went through the process, we focused primarily on operations, LIS, Office of the CAO, and then IT and bylaw. So we've implemented the majority of it. This award is for the balance, which involves primarily the IT section. So from a design and implementation standpoint, this is really a takeoff from sort of where we were sort of pre-COVID to where we are now sort of post-COVID, and trying to make our spaces much more efficient, technologically set up for the future of our workforce.
Mr. Mayor, I've read the report.
Okay.
I understand the whole point behind it. What I'm asking about is an unbudgeted capital project from 2 years ago.
Correct.
Why is it unbudgeted? Why was it not included in 2022, 2023, 2024 budgets? And it seems to have exhausted the entire budget because it was unbudgeted. Now we are $479,883.57 over budget as a result.
So maybe sort of the first part, perhaps, and maybe in the confusion, is when we brought the report forward in 2022, it was an unbudgeted capital project. Council approved the $591,000 as part of the report at that time in 2022. So it didn't go through a budget process. It didn't have a capital account number, but it was presented in the context of the proposal as a 2022 unbudgeted project. So council did allocate the funding through that time, at that time outside of the budget process. So now we're sort of continuing and trying to finalize phase one. We've gone through sort of working with the Office of the CAO first, bylaw and LIS and Operations and Environmental Services in 2023. And as we work through the final stages of phase one, we work with the various departments to advance and modernize our furniture and layouts, which involves some renovations to the second floor in the IT area.
Okay, so we've dealt with the unbudgeted portion, so this was approved by council in a subsequent report, probably a GDC report, something like that, whatever, it doesn't matter. The problem I have with this now is we're almost $500,000 over budget. We have a very tight budget. We spent a lot of time on it. If we are over budget, our policy is either we cancel the project, or we go ahead, or we revise the project to try and keep it back under the properly budgeted amount. I'm not inclined today to support this major over budget. So can you speak to the possibility of going back and revising this? Because, I mean, we have more and more people working from home. I understand about redoing the areas, but very honestly, to me, if staff are working from home, which is fine, that's the new way of doing things, we don't need as many meeting rooms. We don't need as many office spaces. Like if we just do the furniture to accommodate and make those hoteling spaces, which is, I guess, what we've done in the CAO's office and what I think this has to do, can we not do this at a much lower cost of $479,000?
So there's a couple of components. As we're doing this, we are also looking at sort of carpet tile replacements and painting, sort of as we're doing the furniture, where it all makes sense to do it at the same time. There's also enhancements that are being made in the IT section to accommodate staffing requirements and needs, as well as enhance and create a customer service area or customer service desk that has been sort of long been a gap in terms of how we're set up, in terms of how we provide support to staff and employees. I will let Deputy CAO Cooper speak to this in further detail if she wishes, but the intent was really, as we're going through this exercise, avoiding future costs by trying to create more efficient spaces, and it made sense as we were going through the design process to make these revisions while we're replacing the furniture, as opposed to coming back at a later date with a future capital project where it's not as integrated and the process is not as efficient. So, Nicole?
Through the chair, if I could, I'd just like to speak to the business need for a moment. The IT group was actually one of the pioneers, I think, in this building and in the town for really embracing sort of a true hybrid work environment. So we have 16 desks in IT right now. We have over 30 staff in that group, and that doesn't include summer students or contractors that we have on site most of the time. So those groups work primarily from home, but are in the office probably 1 to 2, sometimes 3 days a week, and there's insufficient room for the team to work in that area. They're also split across 2 rooms, which is not ideal for collaboration, but one of the bigger issues, and Dave alluded to one of them, the first one is the setup is just not conducive to good customer service from IT. What you see in other places is a service counter where when people come in with their laptops and phones, they can be properly queued, they can have a waiting area. We just kind of have like one little area where people awkwardly stand and wait for their devices. I'm sure you've experienced that when you go up there. Also, a total lack of storage in that space. So we use the basement of Town Hall for storage. We have staff running up and down from the basement all the time. There's no area for like setting up and preparing new devices. So when we're trying to get 5 or 6 new laptops ready for staff, they're kind of doing it off the corner of somebody's desk. So these are the types of problems that are meant to be resolved. We do have the lunchroom up on the 2nd floor, which is almost never used. So the design contemplates making that into a more useful space to address some of the concerns I've just outlined. Okay. Thank you.
And mechanical and electrical service rearrangements to fit the new layout. Okay. All right, those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bauer, you also pulled this. Do you have additional questions?
Thank you, Chair. No, my questions have been answered. I will just add one more. This is just Phase 1. So what is the estimations for Phases 2 and 3 of timeline and perhaps cost? I don't know if that's been done yet.
With respect to the second phase, we've gone through sort of the preliminary design exercise that focuses primarily on finance, planning and development services, and on the second floor for HR and where the training room is situated. So we've gone through, we've done completed floor plans. There are some minor renovations that will be required up in the HR training room. We do have a budget already approved for Phase 2. It's around $1.3 million. Sorry, $1.6 million. That has been already approved, and sort of as we move forward, we're working with that budget in mind as we're completing the design. We'll then have a subsequent third phase, which is subject to budget approval, that relates to the Ajax Community Center and the Fire Hall headquarters in terms of the administrative area. So it was always intended to be a three-phased project, and we're hoping to award and move forward with the Phase 2 component sort of by the end of the year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And so those adaptations to the second floor for the HR in Phase 2, I've only been upstairs a few times, but the work that's being proposed to be done now upstairs, could that possibly be added or moved into Phase 2?
The work that has been awarded as part of today's report is part of Phase 1. It's the completion of IT and corporate services. The Phase 2 piece, which is strictly the IT training room, and there's components, obviously, that is a fairly significant room that can be much better utilized in terms of interview rooms. There's from a wellness standpoint, we're looking at a wellness room. We're looking at a prayer room. We're looking at space that we don't currently have designated that there is a need for within our organization. So those provisions have been made through the redesign of the HR training room on the second floor.
And that's not part of the staff lunchroom or any of the upstairs components that you're looking at?
That's correct. HR was contemplated to be part of the second phase, not the first phase.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions, Chair.
Councillor Henry?
Thank you. Quick question, when you mentioned customer service desk, you're meaning internal customer service desk, not front-facing to residents, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because it's a very secure area up there and made me think a little bit about what we're doing here. I've seen the area and folks are quite squished on top of each other up there, very congested area. I have spent too much time up there because I needed some help with some equipment when I first come on, so I can see the need for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
So the term, sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. The term unbudgeted is what is, makes the hair stand on everyone's, stand up straight. And so if this was identified in 2022, did it hit I'm sorry if I didn't notice it, did it hit the budget at any given point from there till now? And have any of the other phases been added into the budget?
So the first phase, the $591,000 was approved in 2022 as an unbudgeted capital account. Phase 2 and 3 have been fed through the budget process.
Seeing no more questions, mine would just be, if we don't do it this year and you were to include it in the upcoming budget, do you foresee any complications? Do you foresee staff not having a place to work or anything towards that?
With respect to this award,
Right. So if we were to hold off until the upcoming budget process, which I think is 2 months away, and we actually put it through the budget that way it's not unbudgeted anymore, what are the consequences of that?
I guess from a couple of perspectives, obviously we've gone through the procurement process in terms of recommending this award. There's a continued sort of disruption in service that we would continue to provide. We are trying to move forward in a sequential way from phase 1 through phase 2. So phase 2, we're riding on sort of following up with a new bid document that'll be on the streets, I would suggest, within the next month. So sequentially, we would want to do phase 1 and complete it as we transition into phase 2. So there'd be a significant disruption in terms of timing and the flow of implementation.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll start the vote then. Thank you. Did I get a mover? Sorry. I don't think I got a mover for this. Mayor Collier, do you want to move this? So Mayor Collier to move. Thank you. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Next, we are going to jump to 4.7, PDS 2024-22, Updated Planning Application Review Process and Planning Act, fees to address Bill 185. I'm not going to read the parentheses. Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. Just in reviewing this, I found the increases in charges to be pretty significant. Just let me find this page here. There we go. So I understand Bill 185 has had some changes as outlined in the report, but I'm having trouble correlating these changes with the significant increases. For example, local official plan amendment, simple, is a 42% increase, complex 16%, simple zoning bylaw amendment 57%, complex 53%, temporary use bylaw 51%, joint OPA 31.5, joint OPA complex 16, down to what looks like site plan major and minors look like complete 100% increases. So I guess I'm just wondering, are these appealable like our DC bylaws would be? And secondly, how do we justify these significant increases based on, I mean, I want to be able to say our costs have gone up and this is what reflects what our true costs are of doing this. So I just want to know how these were established.
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, I'll turn it over to Stev to answer your questions with regard to the report.
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, we also have our consultant from Watson and Associates on the line who can also answer this question as well. But I will start by saying that the fees that you see here are the same price someone would pay if they're going through the current process that has the multiple stages. The fees at the end are collectible, are the same, because we have adjusted our process back to what it was pre-Bill 109.
Right.
We have taken what we separated out into multiple processes and put it back into a single application fee.
So are these appealable?
Perhaps our consultant is Peter on the line?
Yes or no, if he's here?
Peter, if you could kindly unmute yourself by using the center bottom button of your screen.
Sorry, it's me.
These fees are appealable under the Planning Act.
Okay. And my other, I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about some of our agreements, because now with the recent approval of the official plan, regional official plan, and the MZOs, we have a site plan agreement. We have we now need to sign or have these people with the MZOs sign affordability agreements to do the affordability components. And we've talked briefly last week about creating a mayor's directive agreement, which is something that will pertain directly to when we do a mayor's directive and we put some of these things in, that the applicant will agree to it in a contractual basis. So if what we set out doesn't happen, like the time frame or the affordability, these other things, we at least have a little bit of teeth if it goes to the OLT if we decide to change it. Are these fees that are going to be incorporated into this afterwards? Or are these just, like, will there be a fee for these services or for these agreements? Is this something that's going to come in a future iteration?
So through the chair to Mayor Collier, fees for agreements are not reflected here currently. Fees associated with staff's time to prepare the official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments that would be under a mayoral direction are part of this bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move it.
Okay, moved by Mayor Collier. We have Councillor Crawford. Yep, but
I did too.
Councillor Crawford went first.
I'm not, you can tell me if I'm out of line, Mr. Chair, but there's a commercial going on right now with Build saying that municipalities are 2 years behind in approving permits, and that's why we have no houses built. Can you tell me if that's true? Speaking from our municipality only, of course.
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford. From the town's perspective, especially under the new development application review pilot that we have improved our planning application processing fees specifically for site plan and site plan amendment applications. We've had a over 70% improvement in our processing times. We are, for the most part, meeting all the legislated timeframes for decisions. And I will leave it to Director Romanowski to speak maybe to building permit issuance.
And through the chair to Councillor Crawford, like building permits, they're being applied for, they're being approved and issued within the statutory timelines for all levels of our applications. So our numbers are down in the amount of permits being applied for, but the timing of issuing those permits have all been in line with the legislative requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, or Henry.
Thank you. There's a few areas of the report I just have highlighted and wanted to either bring to light or ask a question about. So the first one is municipalities can no longer apply minimum parking requirements in projected major transit station areas. I know what that means, and I'm just going to ask you to briefly touch on this for the folks listening at home that are questioning the height of the zoning in the area around the GO Train area. Could you just briefly touch on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, this particular provision in the Planning Act simply stipulates that if a developer is looking to provide a certain number of parking, that the municipality can't require them to provide more parking. We can't stipulate what the minimum required is.
Excellent. So I know it sounds silly to bring that up, and it's in there in writing, but I want that on the record for folks that keep asking this question. I wanted to ask about the statutory public meetings will only be held at Committee of Affairs and Planning committees unless otherwise requested by members of council. This will reduce the number of matters being addressed at council meetings. So how many council members would have to request that? Is it like a quorum where it would be four persons? And how is that? Sorry, I just asked how many people would have to request it? Is it 4?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, that wouldn't be the process for these types of items. So as staff build the agendas, they would identify which items were going forward to CAP versus council based on a number of factors. So as outlined in the report, it would be every effort to make everything come to a CAP meeting prior to council, but there would be instances where it would come to council.
And would one of those instances be a mayor's directive where it would come to council over CAP?
Correct. So Part 6 allows the head of council to place items on an agenda for council to review. So at that point, the mayoral directive could outline whether or not it's coming to a CAP meeting or a council meeting.
And at that point, could council ask that it come to CAP over the mayor's directive, or is that not an option?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, council could not direct the mayor further based on the mayoral directive. They could have an offline conversation with the mayor if they'd like, but the directive would stand.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. With regards to section 3.3 at the end, just before 3.4, it says, however, the credit would not apply if the development proposed changed from the concept submitted at pre-consultation if the planning application is submitted by a property owner that was not the property owner during the pre-consultation process, or to a minor variance or constant application. So does this relate to developers that try to gain zoning order changes and then turn around and sell the property? How does this relate?
So this would be if a developer came in for a pre-consultation, a voluntary pre-consultation, and their development application was for stacked back-to-back townhouses, and we reviewed and provided a minutes package based on that proposal, and then they came in with a development application that had a mid-rise building and townhouses built into the base, then that's a significant change from the pre-consultation, and we see that as a different development application proposal, so they would not receive their credit for the pre-consultation for that, because the effort we would have put in for pre-consultation, we would have to do again for the initial review of a new development proposal.
So how is that being communicated to the property owners or developers prior to the pre-consultation? Is there a conversation with them via email or on the phone that is directing them to, hey, make sure you know what you want here, because once you come in and pay this fee, if you change your mind and you redevelop the whole thing, we're going to have to go through this all over again and charge you for it. That's the gist of it, correct?
Correct. Now, pre-consultation is voluntary, so someone can go straight to their planning application submission. And if someone does come in for pre-consultation, that information would be communicated to them at the pre-consultation meeting and part of their minutes package.
But is there anything, if they come to the desk and they say, I want a pre-consultation, is there someone saying to them, do you have all your ducks in a row? Because if you change your mind from this pre-consultation to moving on forward, it's another fee. You're basically setting yourself back in time. Is that being communicated to folks? Some developers have everything set out, and they've been doing this a long time, and they've got all their ducks in a row. And then you've got other folks that might be, developing one property. It could be an add-on to a church or a mosque or a smaller development, and maybe they're not used to developing all the time. So are we making sure that we're communicating this to them so that they're not getting charged double?
Definitely, that's something that the staff member responsible for pre-consultation can ensure that all applicants that come in for the pre-consultation are aware of.
And if there is, and am I to understand this correctly, the pre-consultation fee then gets applied to the rest of the application because the pre-consultation was not necessary and was an additive at this point?
It's not that pre-consultation is voluntary, not necessarily not necessary. It is, perhaps Peter would like to respond to this as well. It was Watson & Associates that developed the new fee structure, but it is a credit towards the planning application fee, because the work that would be associated with an initial review we would have undertaken as part of the pre-consultation, and then we would credit them that amount against their development application fee because that initial work was already done by staff.
Excellent. So, and this is also communicated at that time?
Yes.
Excellent. I believe that's my questions. Just let me take one look here. Oh, sorry, there was a question with regards to preparation of zoning orders. So this is just 3.5 at the end, just before 4.0. Preparation of zoning orders, $17,151, and then preparation of standalone official plan amendments. The cost for this came out of where? Was that from the taxpayers? How was that paid for, budgeted?
So these are new fees
Yes.
that would be charged for staff's time in preparing zoning orders and working with the ministry if it's a minister's zoning order, or again, standalone official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments associated with a mayoral direction. The fees for these were established by Watson through information that was provided by staff. We have workbooks where we account for staff involvement and time associated with preparing these. And we have had a fair amount of experience with preparing minister zoning orders and preparing these official plan amendments and
Sorry.
zoning bylaw amendments.
Let me interrupt you for a minute
okay.
to save time.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking here is, and I'm not questioning if staff worked hard on these or should be paid for it, 100% absolutely. I know the work you folks are doing over there. I guess what I'm asking is, who's paying for minister zoning orders this time? This is coming from the tax base?
The applicant, the developer, whoever is,
They're paying for it?
they would pay for it.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify,
okay.
is who's paying for it. So this is part of the application fee for, so there is an application fee for a minister zoning order that the applicant pays for?
Correct.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't coming out of the resident base. That's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, this is moved by Mayor Collier. We'll start the vote. Sorry, I was playing with the button. I can start it here. I don't need that. Perfect. Moving on to item 4.8, PDS-2024-23, financial obligations for the Audley Road and Chambers Drive extensions. Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. And this is kind of new. I don't recall in my time here ever having a, what do they call this thing? No, that's not it. Just find it. A complaint about one of these things, a complaint. So I guess, like, we did our development charge bylaw. When was that last approved, amended?
Through the chairs, 2018.
And was that appealed?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and that appeal process is completed and the DC bylaw is in place?
Correct.
Okay, did Pure Industrial appeal it?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to understand why we are entertaining a complaint from someone over, to me, I mean, our DC bylaw, to me, is absolute. It's gone through the proper process, it received the proper approvals, it went through the proper appeal process, it's done. Why are we even entertaining this and a minutes of settlement to resolve this complaint?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier. So this developer actually paid their development charges under protest, and under the DC Act, they are entitled to do that. So there was a hearing that was going to go forward. And
There was a meeting in August that was canceled at the request of the developer.
correct,
Right.
because we had provided them further information that we were working to provide them with the details. The payment under protest stems from the local service policy that's embedded in their DC bylaw, which pertains to this particular parcel of land where they're responsible for half of the construction costs of two of the roads. They're both in our DC bylaw. The proponent or the developer assumed that they shouldn't have to pay development charges because they're in our DC bylaw. So we had to explain to them that there's a local service policy as well, which entitles them, which we are then asking them to pay for half. We have been going back and forth. They have been questioning the value of the construction costs and such, but and Julie Meppen is here as well. She's been very intimate with this file. I'm not sure if Julie wants to.
Well, okay, I mean, I get all that, but to be fair, every developer pays the DCs under protest. Nobody wants to pay the DCs. I'm not understanding, because I've never heard of this before, an appeal process outside of the DC bylaw development process, where I've never heard of it before. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me, based on the literally probably thousands of these I've seen in the last 22 years. This is a first.
This was a first for us as well.
So, I mean, quite honestly, I'm inclined to just say, no. Like, you're paying your piece of the road, because when I do the math, when I look up top, it's actually supposed to be 2.561 is what the DCs work out to be for this. And the recommendation is that it only be, where is it? 1 point something. You know, I don't want to see a whole slew of these coming forwards.
Through the chair to Mayor Collier. So this one is quite unique in because there are parcels of land that are not developable. They are constructing the road, they're constructing Audley Road South, and they are responsible to pay for part of Chambers Drive on the south end of that parcel as well. The road for Audley, they are responsible under our local service policy to pay 50% up to a 5-meter. That's what they're responsible for paying. We are actually, in our transportation master plan, I believe, it's 13 meters. So it's a little bit more in our cost. There are DCs that go towards the construction of this, and that's why this report is coming forward, that we've collected the DCs from the developer, but we do have to credit some of that back. They will be constructing Audley Road on our behalf, so we are responsible for paying our portion.
So what if we decide, this council decides to not go ahead with Chambers extension to connect? Because we've had that discussion, and I think we're not going to do that. Do we repay this later? Like, are they going to appeal this again, and we're going to have to repay this amount later?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, they're not paying for the full structure of Chambers, they're only paying for the parcel that's south of their property.
Right?
Don't believe that we would have to pay them back.
Pardon?
I don't believe we would have to pay them back. I don't know, I'd have to get a legal opinion on that.
Okay.
But right now, it's in our DC study, so we are collecting for it,
Yes.
and it is our intention to build it.
So, I mean, are we to now expect more of these complaints to come forward from future development? Like, is this precedent setting?
I don't think so. I think, as I said, this is a unique parcel where there's undevelopable lands to the east and to the south. So that's why the town it's part of our DC study.
Okay, so there's special conditions in this case that have been met.
Correct.
That wouldn't be the norm.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
This was originally pulled by Councillor Bauer. So Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Lee. So I just had 4 questions about the actual work itself. So when, and I'm sorry if it's in the report and I didn't see it, when is this work expected to happen and how long will it take?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. The intention was to move forward with the collection of these funds and then have the project tendered this fall. Now, there have been some delays in bringing this report forward and finalizing the minutes of settlement. So I would have to refer to our operations team to determine the exact timing. At this point, I'm assuming that we are too close to the winter season for construction to start this year, so it would probably be in early next year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And during that construction period, if there are any unexpected costs or situations that arise that will exceed what the estimates are for the cost of this, who will cover those costs?
To Councillor Bauer, the amount that we are securing right now for the extension that is being built, that will be the upset limit. So they would be responsible for any cost overages at this point.
Okay, perfect. And they are fully aware of that?
Yes, this is a single amount. We are mitigating our risks. We're kind of capping our amount at that amount, and yes, that has been discussed, and that's why we are bringing this report forward. And we requested minutes of settlement so that all of that can be laid out and agreed upon beforehand.
Perfect, thank you. And then, so the interim Audley Road extension is first, and then the ultimate will follow. So the interim, that's not open for residents to use, is it? That's just for the construction?
The south portion of Audley that is being built right now is just to service their site, but ultimately it will be extended as per what is in our integrated transportation master plan and our DC background study at this time.
Okay. So, okay, perfect. And there's no, I guess, once we know when the interim work is done, then there'll be a timeline for when it will be fully completed, or is there a projection already?
I will have to leave that to perhaps Director Romanowski to answer that question.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, the completion of this network is like a ways away. So these two roads aren't going to be connected through this process. This is just the little piece of Audley being built to service this. The timeline for this, I'd have to go back and look at what our long-range forecast is for this. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but it's not for some time.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So I have no issue, through the chair, I have no issue with the interim Audley Road extension. It facilitates the lands in question so that they can get renters in there and folks can have a proper road. Not an issue. The ultimate Audley Road extension, I like a good shortcut through neighborhoods, you know, to avoid traffic just like anyone else. But I'm failing to understand why we're doing this. Because we're taking an arterial road that's, what, how many lanes of traffic is it going to be? 4 lanes traffic, 2 lanes? And that's made for trucks, busier traffic to come through there. And then we're going to go along the back of that, the south end of that development, through the Chambers Drive extension. So we're going from an arterial road to a local road and putting that kind of heavy footprint of traffic on that road. And is there a bridge needed to be built here in order to have that extension, the Chambers Road extension? Who could answer that?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Henry. Chambers Drive would need a bridge to cross the creek to extend towards Audley, yes.
And is that over protected land?
It's all environmentally protected land.
So why are we doing this?
This is not being done right now. This is only the little piece of Audley. This future discussion that we're having about these roads is for future budget considerations.
So right now, the interim Audley Road extension only?
Right now, as per the map in the report, is only building a portion of Audley Road to the southern limit of the development lands, period.
So the southern limit being the ultimate extension?
No, the southern limit being the southern limit of these lands that this building is being built on.
The yellow portion of the map?
Yes.
And at what point are we deciding about the future of Chamber Road
As I
extension?
mentioned, through future budget discussions and through the forecast, and we'll have to see where it lands. I don't know where it is in our forecast currently. But it's outside the short term. It's probably in the long range capital forecast, but probably towards the end.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a mover for this, please? I see Councillor Bauer, and we will start the vote. That passes. We'll go back to the beginning now. So we are now on item 4.1, PSA-2024-07, the municipal accommodation tax, and Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. And first, I'm very happy to see this come forward. I wish we'd known about this and got this going much sooner, but I'm always very open to non-tax revenues. Where I have an issue with this is this eligible tourism entity, which seems to be this. Can you give me an example, whoever, of what an eligible tourism entity is, please?
Through the chair, Mayor, Collier. Eligible tourism entities is defined in the provincial legislation. If I can just get the actual definition here.
No, but what is it, Robert? Is it like a board of trade?
It could be a board of trade, it could be like Durham Tourism, for example, it could be a chamber of commerce.
Can we create our own eligible tourism entity?
Yes, through the chair, Mayor Collier, when we did the research, we did find that other municipalities created what they refer to as a municipal services corporation,
Right.
where they would set up their own kind of eligible tourism entity. Yeah.
I have an issue giving 50% to somebody that we're looking for a thing. I don't know who it is. We don't know what it is. I would rather see us keep this internal. I know we've been in discussions with the Board of Trade about looking at how we're going to move forward from an Ajax perspective. Is it better if maybe we drive the bus going forward, or what we're going to do? And I think this needs to form part of that. I do like the idea of creating a municipal services corporation to be able to do this for us, and that way we control it. We maintain 100% of the funds to be used in the town for what they're intended. Is that where you see this going forward?
So through the chair to Mayor Collier, this is something that staff have investigated, and we initially, you'll see municipalities like Pickering and Whitby, they've moved forward with the Municipal Services Corporation. It does appear to be a substantial amount of staff time and resources into both setting up the corporation as well as managing the ongoing operations. Any eligible tourism entity is required to keep those funds in Ajax, and we can set the terms if it is a third-party organization that exists already, like a Durham Tourism. Oshawa partners with the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce, for example. You can have an agreement with them that is very prescriptive, that says these funds need to be used for X, Y, Z, all in Ajax, and it needs to be, it is a negotiation to get them to that point, and we will, there would be checks and balances in that process with the eligible tourism entities. So yes, you can set up an MSC, but you can also set out a very prescriptive MOU with an existing entity to ensure that those funds are, and funds only can stay in Ajax. They can't spend them elsewhere.
So so you said Pickering has created their own municipal services corporation.
Yes, they have.
Who would be administering this from the Ajax side internally?
So internally, it would be Public and Strategic Affairs that would
Okay.
be managing the program.
Why would it be labor intensive for Public and Strategic Affairs to not also control the Municipal Services Corporation?
So with the Municipal
You're just
Service.
delegating where the money's going.
Yeah, so the way that an MSC works, and I can defer to maybe the Deputy CAO Cooper or Director Valentin on how this works, but the town would need to assign like a separate board of directors, an arm's length board of directors. They would be subject to their own audit and financial requirements. It would need to be kept entirely separately. You'll see in Whitby, for example, they have, I think, the mayor, the CAO, 2 department heads, and other staff on the board to ideally farm that work or kind of manage it internally. But it would be, to set that up, Whitby's also had to provide like a loan to the corporation to get themselves organized and all of that. So it is just an added layer of administration that staff were, believe that if we set up a fairly tight MOU with a third party, that would be preferable, but we're not at that phase where we've made that decision yet. So, but certainly appreciate the perspective.
Well, how you've described it's exactly how we've set up the Ajax Mayor's Gala Corporation. Complete separate board, complete separate charter, complete separate everything, different audit terms, the whole bit, entirely separate from the town. It's not that labor intensive. What I don't want to see, I want to see this go forward. What I don't want to see is this paying, I don't know, pick a number, $100,000 a year for somebody to manage something which really I think we can manage and control internally or through a separate board quite easily.
Absolutely.
So that would be my preference. I mean, I'm going to support this. I'm going to move it if we don't have a mover. And what's the time frame to bring this back?
So council will see a bylaw and like enacting all of these details before the end of the year. Our plan after consulting with the
January
hotels
1st.
and those things, we're hoping for January 1st, but certainly before the busy season starts in the spring.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Look forward to it.
We'll have to ask your wife how labor intensive the mayor's gala is, sir. But Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee, and thank you, Mayor Collier, for asking those questions. I also was curious about that. I have a few more. Thank you for the report, very interesting. So the tax is effective January 1st, and then a little bit in the report, it talks about how you will be speaking with the impacted parties to advise them on this report or on the new tax. So what's the plan, the strategy to educate all of these impacted facilities in such a short time?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Bauer, for the question. After this meeting, and we're looking at, if we're looking to implement by January, we're going to be communicating and educating like the hotels, motels, short-term rentals in November through December, just so that they're aware of it, so we can start fresh in the new year.
Okay, thank you. And is there a penalty for non-payment?
So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, just to add on to what Robert said, is the education that will happen for the hotels and that is how they actually remit those funds to the town. And I think this is an important clarification to make, especially for those that are perhaps watching, is that the tax is not on the hotels. The tax is on the individuals that stay in the hotels. So they are charged, it's a transient accommodation, so somebody that is passing through, that's what they're paying. So the education piece is how they will set up in their existing systems to collect that. But staff don't anticipate it will be particularly onerous on the hotels, especially those that are not independently operating. As a mom and pop hotel, they often have a larger, whether they're a Hilton or a Super 8, they have a parent company that is currently being charged or currently charging the MAT tax on behalf of municipalities across the province. So really, pending council's decision today, staff will just be working really closely with them around our expectations for, how timely they can remit the payments to us or any questions. But in terms of non-payment, it's an interesting quandary that some municipalities have found themselves in. The legislation doesn't really go into too much detail about what can be done. It would be set in the terms of our bylaw, which we will seek legal opinion on how we would go to collecting that from those that don't want to remit to us. I think it's Mississauga or Burlington has noted that they have one or two hotels that don't pay it, and they won't give it to the municipalities. They don't believe in it, so and Burlington's kind of in a place where we're like, okay, what do we do? Do we sue them? Like, there's legal action that can be taken. But right now, that's something that staff will contend with through the bylaw with legal advice. But we do expect it should be, as Robert mentioned, given that there's only 3 hotels in Ajax right now, that the consultation should not be particularly onerous.
Okay, great. And then the report does indicate that it's planning to be passed on to Airbnbs and other short-term rentals, correct? Great. And my last question is, so in the report, you mentioned infrastructure that promote or enhance visitor experiences. So can you just give us examples, like what kind of stuff are you talking about that would be benefactors of this kind of money?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you, Councillor Bauer. What we're referring to is like investments, like tourism investments, investments in the community and quality of life features as a result of the new revenue that we'll be getting towards tourism in Ajax.
Is there an example you could provide?
Could be something like different festivals and events, different infrastructure for major tourism draws, something to that effect, yeah.
Thank you. So when you talk about infrastructure, it's things like that, or would it also apply to if we want to make downtown Ajax, for example, or the waterfront more walkable, and we need to do repairs to paths or extend paths or things like that? Is that considered infrastructure that would benefit from this tax?
Through the chair, Councillor Bauer, yes, that would be considered as well. Maybe do investments in the waterfront or anything that's related to tourism, but then also benefits the community as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
More money to the waterfront, Councillor Bauer? Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So my concern with passing this report today, these are my concerns. We are taxing something that we haven't agreed we're going to allow, short-term rentals. We're putting something in motion that we have no governance in place for or intended governance in place to protect those that reside near them, short-term rentals. We may be unintentionally increasing the government's cost as the government pays for newcomers to stay in hotels, thus further burdening the taxpayer, hotels. We are setting up a system with Durham Tourism and Central Counties Tourism prior to governance of rules and regulations for those visiting our town, short-term rentals. Further concerns, what information will be given to visitors through tourism sites, example, parking on our town streets, limited parking, waterfront parking, all these type of questions. Who can answer any of those concerns?
So through the chair to Councilor Henry, I'll take a crack at some of those, and please feel free to jump in if I've missed anything. So a couple of things just off the bat. So staff have obtained a legal opinion that indicates that regardless of the status of the explicit definition of a short-term rental, whether it's in our zoning bylaw or any other process or bylaw that we have, we can, as per the Municipal Act, collect this tax. So we have a legal opinion that states that is the case. I also, and so that means that if it's not a permitted use or it is a permitted use or whatever road we take or council decides to take, it will have no bearing on the implementation of this program from a legal perspective, and that's staff's opinion at this point. The other pieces around educating the members of that come to Ajax to visit Ajax, tourism is certainly an area that that staff need to spend some more time on, frankly, focusing on. So actually this week, staff have a meeting with Central Counties Tourism to talk about our priorities for 2025, and we'll really be revamping, and council will see something prior to the end of the year around what a tourism, not an explicit strategy, but how tourism feeds into the new world of business development in the strategic initiatives team in the Department of Public and Strategic Affairs. Those pieces and educating visitors on all of the nuances of what they need to know if they're coming to visit, regardless of whether they're staying at an Airbnb or in a hotel, they're visiting family. Those are all things that staff can improve upon, and certainly if we know we're going to be driving more tourists here, that education needs to increase as well. I think in the report we speak to Central Counties Tourism, Durham Tourism as examples of entities that we could consider working with. At this time, we have no decision made around which organization or entity will be that eligible tourism entity for us. And then I feel like there was something else that I missed.
Hotels. So when we speak of the costs that will increase to the ratepayer, I believe you said, not the hotel itself, but the ratepayer, I feel like we're kind of unintentionally causing ourselves more cost in the long run, because as we know, when the newcomers came into Canada, they were housed in certain hotels, motels across the region. We had one here in Ajax. The region pays for that. Then they have to go to federal, provincial government to be reimbursed. Well, they're paying a set fee. Let's say we're just going to throw out $60. And now with this new tax fee, it's going to go up more. So we're actually taxing the region in the end when they're paying for something like that. And then subsequently, the fee is going to go higher to the next level of government that has to reimburse us for that. Has that been thought about in this process? And will those entities be exempted when it's used for this specific issue, be it to house, whether we're housing folks that are on the street, newcomers, whoever it is we're housing because we've run out of space?
Thank you for the question through the chair to Councillor Henry. It's certainly something that has been considered, and you'll see in the Lakeshore municipalities, Oshawa, Whitby, Pickering, have all gone down this road as well for implementing the MAT fee. So that is something that the region would be paying already in several municipalities. I will say that it is certainly something to think about, but while we haven't heard directly from the region of expressing any concern about that, I mean, I won't speak to their business and that operational perspective, but if that was something the region felt strongly and wanted to speak to the lower tiers about, that's something we would be open to at least a conversation about. I think the other piece that's important to note, and I think Robert references it in his report, is that the MAT component of the Municipal Act was added a few years ago now. It's been in place in a lot of municipalities for a while. There are some things we've heard through industry participation in events with tourism industry that there is a push provincially to adapt the legislation a little bit, to make it a little bit tighter, to take in some of these considerations and maybe some of these unintended consequences. This might be one of those unintended consequences. So at that point, staff would just defer to waiting for the province to provide that direction and hearing from the region directly. But at this time, it's something we're aware of, but we've not included an exemption at this time as something we're contending.
I would imagine that certain councillors sitting here that sit on the housing board would be very much interested in that information, because maybe the region hasn't flagged that yet, right? It's not seeing that, but it's a concern. With regards to the short-term rental aspect of it, and if I'm understanding you correctly, by approving this report today, we're not actually saying we're allowing short-term rentals here in Ajax, correct?
Yep, sorry, Councillor Herring, could you
By
repeat the question?
approving this report today, we are not saying that we're allowing short-term rentals in Ajax, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, that's not what this report is saying.
Okay.
How I do believe that they are a permitted use as they are considered a bed and breakfast under the zoning bylaw currently. So they are currently allowed to operate. I just want to offer that clarification that this does not change anything related to the status of short-term rentals in Ajax.
I just want to make sure we're not agreeing to something that we haven't decided we're going to allow, because in the last meeting, the CAP meeting, we've asked for a definition and we're waiting for that to come back. So when we talk about this tax and a lot of the different things that you mentioned here, hotels and bed and breakfast and that, I just need to point this out again publicly, that we are talking about places that have someone on site that is managing and controlling the environment to make sure that, folks are welcomed and having a great time, but also we're not seeing, in my knowledge base, the same amount of complaints, be it to bylaw or police,
Councillor
from
Henry,
hotels.
yeah. So I think all they're saying is right now, short-term rentals are approved at the town. Barring any change to that, they'll be taxed with the municipal accommodation tax.
I just need to bring that up because, as you know,
Councillor
our
Henry, this-
ward
Yep,
is pushing back on this.
we got it.
Just want to make sure it's public.
And through the chair, I believe Deputy CAO Cooper may have some additional comments around no. Sorry. No, you're good, sorry.
There is no additional comment. She's like, no.
Well, I suppose I could just elaborate a little bit on the legal opinion that we received, which is consistent with what Ms. Cruciano just outlined, and that's to say that regulation or permissions or compliance are not a precondition to taxing a property. So if you think about our levying of the property tax, I mean, at any point in time, there are many properties around town that are not compliant with zoning or with the dog and cat bylaw or with the fire code or the building code. That doesn't stop us from sending the tax bill quarterly and collecting those taxes. So the legal opinion that we received essentially confirmed these are entirely separate matters, and there's no onus on us to regulate or confirm compliance in each case in order to collect this tax.
And I appreciate you going down that rabbit hole with me, but you can understand why the pushback we're receiving from our ward, why we'd need to go down this rabbit hole publicly so that folks understand everything's on the table.
Yeah, understood.
So appreciate it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Dyes.
Oh, thank you. So just want to clarify, please. So if this is approved today and moves forward, then that 50% that goes to an eligible tourism entity, is that also going forward? Or are you going to come back, or are we going to revisit that? Because I also have a concern with that. It didn't work so well at the region with a certain organization that was there for years and years. And you know, and sometimes there's a lot more passion and knowledge involved when it's in your own municipality and you're promoting the things that you know best and you love best. And I think that that should really be the emphasis here, is to keep it in-house and see what we can do first before we even consider giving that to somebody who we don't know anything about yet and don't know what they're going to provide and what are their promises and how are they going to promote this for us. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that before any decisions go forward on that you're going to come back and talk to us more about that.
So through the chair to Regional Councillor Dias, the bylaw for implementing the MAT will come back to council before the end of the year. So the terms and specifics about the policy will be shared with council at that time. The report today does request delegated authority to the CAO to do that agreement with the eligible tourism entity, but the timing of that and hearing kind of the feedback today is certainly something that could come after council passes the bylaw.
Okay. I would prefer to have something come back so that we have a better understanding of what we're going to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, can I get a mover, please? Moved by Regional Councillor Crawford. Thank you very much, and we'll start the vote. That passes. Thank you very much. We're on to item 4.2, PSA-2024-08, the review of traditional communication tools. We have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to say it again, not that anyone's listening, but I like a paper. I like a magazine for my recreation, but no one's listening, so I get it. What really shocked me was the largest population is 14 years and under. I don't know if that shocked, I would have thought it would have been the other end, would have been larger, but I was quite surprised at that being the largest number in the population. So my question is, in our attempt to, advocate for people and children and to think about politics as a career, why have we not been going into classrooms? And maybe it's because we're not invited, I'm not really sure. Maybe it's just a mayor thing, but I think it would be really good if we in the future start to look at things like, I know Whitby does counselor in the classroom. And I think that, some counselors are into it, some of them aren't. But I think it would be something that I would like to see happen through Ajax. And I think it's actually grade 10. There might be something in grade 6 or something like that in there. But even if it was just around talking about civic duties, just an understanding of where this town came from, I would also like to see a book of Ajax in every single library in the schools. Coming from a weekend where, we celebrated that with the veterans, I thought it would be, it reminded me again, the uniqueness of our town and how our town came to be a town. And with all of the diversity, which is now at like 65%, I'm not sure that same message is out there. We do some work with it through spirit walks and whatever, but it would be great to have, I know we can't control curriculum, but it would be great to be able to have that book looked at, even just glanced at during a civic class, because this is the town they're in. Anyway, that was just my comment. It's not really a question, but actually it is kind of a question about having counselors in the schools, if that's even something that the school board would entertain.
Director McLarty, did you want us?
Thank you. Through the chair, you'll be happy to hear, Councillor Crawford, we are introducing a program. It's in the works. The program is being developed, and actually it includes activity books. It includes a wide range of pieces. We will be focused.
Is that the one that I gave you?
Pardon me?
Is that the one I gave you?
It might be a component of where we ended up. I can't remember. Staff, including Jennifer Larman and Samantha Patterson, have been leading this, and so they are coming to council with the program in the coming month to be able to explain it. They've done some trials with staff here. Our focus will be on grade 5 that's when the civics piece is introduced, and we will be focusing on them coming to town hall as an opportunity to get out of the school and take a visit and do a tour. So we've got the whole program laid out. It will come back, and you can have some feedback on that program. As for the books in the library, I can make that happen this week. So we can make sure that all the schools in Ajax have a book.
And can we talk to schools about having counselors come in and talk?
Sure.
If they're interested, like maybe they're not, I don't
Sure.
really know. But
I would like to launch our grade 5 program first and then offer that as an extension. I know they do assemblies all the time. There's different opportunities. Maybe the high schools, we can start with the high schools as they become, they're a little bit older at that point and they're starting to consider these different careers and of course, democracy and voting. So lots of opportunities there, but we do agree that we had a gap for a few years and we are bringing back that program.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. And again, I'll just say, I like a book.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? I'll just quickly point out that unfortunately, a community survey about communications was only contributed by about 220 people. Am I reading the data correctly?
To the chair, yes. You are reading that correctly. However, that wasn't the only extent of the public outreach, wasn't just the survey. I did attend multiple focus groups throughout the year. We kind of began those in May, and we also attended ward meetings as well to make the public aware.
Still, I think it's safe to assume we've reached under 1,000 people out of a population of 126,000. So listen, I think every municipality, every brand, every company is having an issue communicating to their customers, which is our constituents in this case. So I appreciate the efforts, I appreciate the insights provided, but speaking from the council point of view, there has to be some sort of silver bullet we haven't figured out yet. I don't know what it is, of course not, but there's a lot of the fact that we're still getting feedback in spite of all your efforts that, oh, I didn't know about this event, I didn't know about this, is a problem. And so I'm not sure what the solution is, and I task you and your team to figure that out, because how else do we inform our constituents?
And I do think that was part of the purpose of this review, is to understand how the community wants to hear from us, to take a review of our practices, and then we can start to apply those best practices going forward.
Right.
Through the chair, I just want to add an important piece to the report is the considerations that we do have to consider being urban municipality with a busy constituent base. It is really, really difficult to push through that noise. And at this point in time, with the resources, it is basically you throw out the seed and hope something grows, right? Like it's really, really difficult to get people to be engaged. And that's why we wanted you to consider some of that demographic and consideration information that we provided, because we understand it. We know the noise, and we're trying every which way to improve the way we are communicating.
In the words of my mother, have you guys tried going viral? Sorry. That's all. Could I get someone? Councillor Crawford, come back in.
Sorry. So you can say whatever you want about the local rag. That was people's Bibles. They really do miss. That's a gap that whether we want to admit it or not is still really hard to fill. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting we create our own paper. That's not what I'm saying. But it does create, people would look for that community page. People would look to see what was happening in there. And I think that really through COVID, we found a lot more participation in the public information sessions online. I couldn't believe how many people we were getting online, mainly because people had to do it. There was no other options, right? But you would never get that in person. And again, now even with our public information meetings, they're much lower attended than they were before, maybe a little bit better. But I do want to say that the paper has really left a gap for some, especially the older generation, that really did look for it. And, you can say whatever you want about the paper. That was what they went to for their information. So Yeah, so we're not I'm not, this is in no way, shape or form criticism, because I was on 2 front pages about BRT, stood on my head for 5 years. I went out door knocking, they said, what's that thing they're gonna put down the middle of the road? Like, honestly, you think, how many times do you have to say it? How many times do you have to repeat it? I don't know what the magic number is, but we haven't figured it out. You just keep saying over and over and over again and hope somebody listens, you know?
To the chair, or through the chair to Councillor Crawford, that was something that we did note throughout, and we did hear feedback not only from residents on the challenge of losing the local paper, but other municipalities as well, trying to navigate that. It was something I heard across the board. Some really interesting feedback that I received throughout the surveys, and actually from the Older Adults Task Force, is that they weren't necessarily overly concerned about getting, let's say, a new hard copy of a paper. But what they would really like to see is an improved ajax.ca. And we do have that in the budget for 2025. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, can I get a mover just for this report? We have Regent Councillor Crawford, and we will start the vote. And thank you. Moving on now to item 4.3 PSA 2024-09, Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program. We have Regional Councillor Crawford first. Marilyn, do you want to speak on 4.3? It's okay. 4.3? Green and Inclusive Community Building. Why don't we go to... Sure. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. 4.3. Okay, so my question is, you'll notice in multiple places in this report, new washrooms and change rooms. So I want to know what that entails. Can someone speak to that, what we're looking at here? Who's gonna bite the bullet on this?
I think I would be looking to Director Meredith for that one. That's
All right.
unfortunately, sorry, Dave.
Let's do this, Director Meredith. What do you got for me? What are we talking here?
Yeah. So
with respect to the Ajax Community Center, we have a full renovation that is planned. And a key part of that renovation is making the facility accessible. As many of you may know, there are a number of components of that facility right now that are not accessible. So that is sort of one of the underlying themes of modernizing that facility. So a key part of that is obviously your washroom facilities that need to be looked at to ensure that they are fully accessible. So that would be part of the design exercise.
Let me be more direct. Are we talking about universal change rooms for everyone? Are we talking about keeping the existing private change rooms and having a public universal change room? Are we talking about 3 different models within one where we have universal, female, male? What are we talking here? We need to know on this side of the table.
At this point in time, you're way beyond the design process at this point. So right now, we're just in the process of engaging an architect to come up with a conceptual design. Until we've got the conceptual design, we'll examine a range of options. But at this point in time, there could be 1, 2, or 3 options that are explored based on the comments that you've provided. So I couldn't say at this point in time the direction that would be we looked at it. When we look at the Ajax Community Center, we're going to be looking at it from multiple perspectives, from diversity and inclusion, from accessibility, from environment and sustainability. There's so many components that drive the ultimate design that we have to look through it with multiple lenses, and that's what we'll be doing. But to determine or say now how and what the solution is in terms of how we're going to deal with that is premature.
Okay, it might be premature on your side of the table, but on my side of the table, we need to know because there will be public feedback. So I guess I'm asking, at what point will this side of the table see something and be able to comment? And will we be able to comment? Will this come back to council? Because was this decision made prior to me arriving to council or since?
I can, if I could, through the chair, Councillor Henry. At this
Yes.
stage, we're just looking for approval for a grant application for this project. So appreciate your comments, but we're way behind that stage even where we're looking at specifics around it, as Director Meredith indicated.
But when you look for a grant, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
When you folks are applying for a grant, you would put in things that were appetizing to the folks that are giving you the grant, to like fishing, right? With a hook, and you're trying to make sure you meet so many things on that grant application that you are successful. So one of those could be something to do with washrooms. And I guess that's why I'm asking, because let's say you come back to this side of the table 2 months from now, 6 months from now, and say, well, this was part of the grant application process, and thus we have to go through with it in order to get the money. So I know it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I also understand a bit the way grant applications work. And I just want to know from our perspective over here, what we're looking at, and will it come back to us as council before decisions are made? Because we're going to be the ones that are explaining it to the residents, our residents.
So I'm going to just pause it for there. We have Director McClarty.
Through the chair, the grant application will be focused solely on accessing monies for the construction project. The design project is completely separate. When we talk about the project as an overall, we're not looking at, in the grant application, we're not looking at specifics. So we're not talking about the swimming pool or the front entrance or an art mural. We're talking about precisely the construction and components that would be included. So like Director Meredith said, you know, we'll be looking at it from an accessibility lens, from a D&I lens, from a sustainability lens, from a financial lens. All of those pieces are important, but we will not be talking about specific amenities within in that grant application.
Okay, so through the chair, when does the part that I'm interested in come back to this council?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, our plan right now is we're going through developing a terms of reference to retain an architect to initiate the design process. The conceptual design, I would suggest, would take to the middle part of 2025 to potentially the third quarter of 2025. The concept plan would be presented to council. The concept plan we would look to have endorsed by council before we'd move to detailed design. I can also say that through the conceptual design and detailed design, we go through a public participation process. So there are opportunities for input into the design. So it's something that we've done with the Audley Recreation Center, especially in our community facilities, as part of our standard process. So there will be community engagement. There will be, I would say, at least a couple of times where we'll progress through the design process to ensure council's on board with the direction that we're headed. And ultimately, we'll look for an endorsement of the concept plan before we move to detailed design. And I would expect that process to take place through, like I say, the first half to 2/3 of 2025.
First half of 2025.
I can't commit to before the summer recess. It could be just after the summer recess when we're getting before or to council for an endorsement. But somewhere in that.
So there is a
that timeframe.
commitment that it will come back to this council for endorsement before proceeding.
We always do that with our community facilities.
I just want to make sure, because we're going to wear this if it's not something that has had full consultation process with the community. So I just want to make sure. So I thank you for that. That's the answer I'm looking for. And I'm hoping that we see a few options there. And, you know, we as council can push it on our social media to have the consultation process done once you create the tools in place. We'll help with that process. But I just want to make sure that it's out to the public as fulsomely as possible. Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, could I get a mover for the report, please? We see Regional Councillor Dyes, and we'll start the vote. And that passes. We are now on to item 4.4, AFES 2024-03, the Specialized Fire Rescue Response Agreement with Oshawa Fire Service. I believe Councillor Councillor Bauer was the first one to pull this.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. It's page 2 of the report, or 43 of the agenda. The actual wording of the agreement. Can you just, and I'm just maybe being picky here, but what is the difference between bullet A and B for why they would need to be differentiated like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, can you just give the number that you're looking at on that report?
Yes, it's page 2 of the report, or page 43 of the agenda, where it's the items A, B, C, D, and E, which is the...
A seems to deal with the first hour, and then B seems to deal with every half hour after that. Councillor Bauer, does that help?
I guess I'm not understanding why.
Chief?
Yeah, I can address
Yeah,
this.
thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. So specifically, they're looking at back billing for the time that their crews would be here, much like how we deal with the Ministry of Transportation for billing on the highway. It's a set rate based on the MTO rate for the first hour, and then after that, it gets prorated based on every half hour after that. So they're looking at the same type of billing mechanism as what we customarily deal with the Ministry of Transportation. And then for C, it's specifically talking to consumables. So if it's a hazardous materials response, you could be talking about booms that they put in the water, things like that. And then D is the cost of backfilling staffing. And then E is just a flat fee that they would charge us. Now, it's important to keep a note, for any of these charges, we would be seeking cost recovery through the user fee bylaw. So there shouldn't be any direct cost to the town.
Okay, and is this the same agreement that Oshawa has with the other municipalities?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. That's it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I have one question, and it pertains to, I'm seeing 1.01 letters A to G. And in F, we talk about building collapse stabilization. And I wanted to ask, because we are talking about involving our friends in other municipalities to come on board if and when needed, correct? Through the chair. So knowing the amount of high rises that are coming to Ajax, the amount of construction that will be going in and around the MTSA area, and it's a simple question, but you know, are we prepared? When we talk about building collapse stabilization, are we prepared for this from a fire perspective?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry. This is all part of our preparation. So this agreement with Oshawa gives us a first point of contact. So it allows Oshawa to basically respond in an expedient manner to help address building collapses and help address other forms of specialized rescue within specific parameters. Notwithstanding that, for building collapse, we also have the ability to engage with the Provincial Emergency Operations Center, and that would be our secondary point of contact to get even more resources if they're so required.
And at what time, moving forward, with the town of Ajax growing as rapidly as we are, and the construction that's coming ahead, will we need to be looking at having this, I guess, training in-house in Ajax? Will that come to a point where we won't be looking at our friends to help us in these situations?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, I don't foresee we're going to need to go down that road at this point, especially as the province is looking at expanding and improving the model of specialized rescue teams, especially for building collapse. You're talking a large amount of equipment dealing with shoring, dealing with different sound equipment, all that type of stuff. It's something that I think the model of a provincial team is very beneficial, and I think it's where we need to go, and it is where we're going.
And through the chair, with the growth that we're seeing now, do you foresee anything in the near future where we will be behind as far as what will be needed in fire for the
So-
town of Ajax?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, I am presently examining, based on the master fire plan, our staffing requirements, and I'm hoping early in the new year to be bringing a report to council, basically addressing those types of items for 2025 to 2027.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I get a mover for the report, please? Councillor Henry, and we'll call the vote. Thank you. We've dealt with items 4.5 through 4.10. No, we haven't done the markets. Did we do the markets? No. So we'll go to item 4.10, RC-2024-06, Ajax Markets updates. We have Councillor Crawford first.
Thank you very much. Through you to I don't know who, but I think that it's been a great success. Although numbers are obviously, in the first year, we don't expect to have huge numbers. I think that overall, it's something that the community has asked for, and we did it, and I'm very pleased with it. I have a question about why the market. I think it's at J. Clark. They do their own market. I can't remember the name of it. Is it Durham? I can't remember what it is, but they do like a food market like earlier in the day, and then the Ajax market is like Wednesdays one and Thursdays the other one. Why can't we combine those two? I think it would make more sense if you're going to do a farmer's market that both of those be together, and therefore you increase your traffic all around if you could do it all at once. And I don't know, I just think it makes more sense.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, firstly, thank you for the positive comments on the market. Staff do consider it a success as well for the first year. With respect to your question specifically, I've got Robert Gruber on the line. He can provide a little bit of further insight. I do want to say that the food market, a little bit different than the intent of the Ajax market, as that's intended to help with food insecurity within the community, not necessarily the same premise of the market. But I'll turn over to Robert. He may have a little more insight.
Were they not selling there?
Sorry, the food market?
Yeah. Yeah, was the food security like more for education, or what was it?
I believe they were selling food, but it's at a discount from market prices. So the idea is that people have better access to fresh foods at a reduced rate.
Oh, okay, I don't know how, okay, sorry, I'll stop talking and let Robert talk.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vita. So, and I apologize ahead of time. There's a major glitch that I'm getting every now and then. So if all of a sudden I beep out, it's because I've got a glitch. Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, yes, the CCD market that was on Wednesdays, that was specifically for a very short time at a very specific time during the day at a very reduced rate, I believe. And they were looking at people that are needing some or have some food insecurities. It was very specific. It wasn't going to match the pricing that the vendors at our market were having. So that's why it was kind of at a specific time. That was a partnership event, I believe, or a partnership that we had through the Ajax Partnership Fund. The Durham College one, though, is a bit of a different story, and I'm not sure whether Cass wants to speak to that or not. But I think they wanted to be sort of separate because of they were kind of along the same lines as the CCD market that was out. Growing it for them as well. I believe that they were growing the vegetables for that. I'm not sure, Cass, or even Christy or Liam, if they want to chime in on that.
Thank you, Robert. Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. Yes, so the CCD market that ran on Wednesdays over the lunch hour at the ACC, they sourced their produce from the Barrett Center, and they sold that at, as Robert mentioned, at a lower than market rate with a focus on food insecure individuals, but it was open to everyone. When we approached the Barrett Center, they have very specific outcomes that they have to meet as a result of their partnerships that they have. So providing just, selling their food at one of our markets is not something that they kind of had ever contended as a goal. So they only really do that from a partnership. They work directly with, our understanding is with food, like food banks and other organizations directly, rather than sell it. They feel that selling to make a profit, at a market and competing with other vendors that may want to be selling fresh produce at a market rate would undercut them.
So other farmers that were at the farmers market would feel they were being undercut?
Yes, and that was their concern as
Okay.
the Barrett Center. They did not want to undercut the other vendors because their business model and the way that they operate is very different.
Okay, well, that makes more sense. And did we have, do you know how the numbers were with the Barrett Center food market?
Through the chair, we do get, I believe, a wrap-up report. Community Care Durham does provide that. I don't think we have that offhand, but I can certainly get that information and share that.
Yeah, whenever you can. I'm just curious because it felt like it was a bit confusing having two different markets, but I think I understand now why that happened. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So through the chair, I agree with what Councillor Crawford said because we saw a lot of feedback, even from folks that were participating in the market, saying why aren't they joining us, because folks are getting confused and they're thinking that they go on the Wednesday and we're not there. So I'm just wondering if the advertisement around that for next year can be slightly altered or changed or more communicative to show the differences between the two. So folks that are looking for one thing go on Wednesday and folks that are looking for the other go on the Thursday.
Through the chair, absolutely. And I do want to point out that the partnership with Community Care Durham and the Barrett Center was established prior to the Ajax markets coming into becoming a thing, right?
Yeah.
So when and we wanted to make sure that it was a valuable use to the community around there. CCD reported great outcomes last season when they did it. So we did want to continue it, but absolutely where we can avoid that confusion moving forward for next year, if CCD and the Barrett Center are interested in continuing next year. These are seasonal partnerships, so we do an annual partnership with them. So if we do go again, I think that it's worth the conversation around really delineating those two activities from each other, because absolutely, staff understand that could create confusion.
100%. I wanted to ask, when we look at the lower tier municipalities along the lakefront in Durham Region, and we look at these type of markets, I'm noticing they're during the week, but if you go somewhere up north where it's a bigger, fulsomer market, like Uxbridge, you're looking at a weekend. Why is it that we're not doing this on a weekend when folks are out there shopping and maybe perhaps driving more traffic to this event? Can someone speak to that?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, yeah, our special events team did a fair bit of market research into the date and time for the Ajax markets, and while I would tend to agree with you on its face value, a weekend market would seem to be the most successful. The information that we got back from the vendors that would be participating were already committed elsewhere, so it didn't look like a weekend market with an Ajax was going to be the most optimal time for us. It's certainly feedback on the date and time is something that we've received from vendors, but based on the research that we've done, that was probably the best day for our region without competing with another existing and established market.
Sorry, did I understand you correctly? You're saying it was vendor driven, why it was on a day of the week? Understanding that you didn't want to compete with Whitby, because I know they've had a market for quite some time, but what about shopping, the folks that are shopping there? What was the feedback from them?
The feedback from our attendees?
Yes, our customers.
Yeah, for the most part, was fairly positive from our attendees. We found we had fairly good attendance through the beginning of the summer, while we did notice a little bit of a drop off through the tail end of the summer, and something that will take as a lesson learned into next year potentially. The Thursday seemed to work for our users a fair bit. We saw good traction. The vendors who were relying on those attendees to do business also thought the Thursday was a good time for them as well. And from what we heard as well, wouldn't have been able to attend an Ajax market had we done it on a Saturday afternoon due to their commitments elsewhere within the region and beyond.
The vendor part, I understand clearly that the vendors had other commitments. I was looking at if we increased to different vendors on a Saturday or Sunday, what that would look like and if it would bring in more. And I guess the reason I'm asking that is because my actual question related to revenue neutral. And I'm noticing that the costs that we as a town put out to create this, and given it's its first year, we need time to grow. I understand that. It's going to take time. It was very well done considering it was our first year. But I guess I'm asking if we're ever going to get to a point where this will be more revenue neutral, then I think it was like $7 or $8 per person over the overall numbers of what it costs to put this on versus who came. So I guess I'm just looking at that and saying, will we get to that point with a Thursday market? Would we have to move it to a weekend market, maybe get some more vendors in there? What's the future of this? What do you see?
Through the chair. Again, it would be our goal to make this cost neutral for sure. In my discussions with Robert and his special events team, there's certainly some lessons learned through running the markets this year and some opportunities for efficiencies that we may be able to see in subsequent years, specifically within the entertainment and activities area. That's an area that we're going to look to reduce our overall costs for 2025 to try and get the program as close to cost neutral as we possibly can get it.
Excellent. We're on the same page then, you and I. Thank you. Much appreciated. Good job.
Thank you. Could I get a mover for this, please? I see Councillor Henry, and we'll start the vote. One person hasn't voted. Thank you. And finally, we have item 4.11 CS-2024-15, the Integrity Commissioner appointment. We have Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Actually, I don't have a question. It was answered ahead of the meeting, so we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I get a mover? Councillor Bauer, sorry, hand was up first, and we'll call the vote. Thank you. So there's no discussion items. We have a presentation, AFES-2024-02, updates to the Fire Department establishing and regulating bylaw. We have Chief Burridge and Shane Kimball. Chief.
Thank you. Through the chair, just wanted to introduce Deputy Fire Chief Kimball, who will be giving a presentation. We also have Chief Training Officer Reno Levesque here.
Is it on now? There we go. Okay. This presentation is to complement the ENR bylaw that has been provided with you and the specialized rescue bylaw. And it'll help explain some of what's in that. Thank you. Okay. Try and make it short and sweet. So these are levels of service. So with the establishing and regulating bylaw, bylaws approved by council that dictates the level of service that us, the fire department, uses to set our operational guidelines, our training, and our budget, and policy and procedures. Our department has 4 divisions, the Administrative Services, the Fire Prevention and Public Safety Division, Fire Suppression, and Training Division. The Administration Division maintains effective and efficient management, leadership, and administrative support capabilities. It looks after the administration and operations of AFES, the management and leadership of all the personnel, establish and maintain department operating procedures, They maintain the accurate records and files for AFES and effective labor relations. Our fire prevention and public safety services look after the fire inspection services, which is your code compliances, enforcement, and complaints. Your plan reviews and new construction inspections, which is your site plan, feedback related, and fire protection services. Your fire investigation services, which is your determining your cause and origin of fires. Your risk assessment services, conducting community risk assessments. Your consultation services for developing fire safety plans and consults with architects and planners. Our fire department training and education division coordinates and delivers all our AFES training. Most of our training programs are all in-house, manages the overall AFES training environment, delivers our programs, monitors and evaluates those programs and the training, and maintains complete and accurate AFES training records. The core services of our fire suppression division, we deliver in both interior offensive and exterior defensive modes, which include our search and rescue, our forcible entry, ventilation, protective exposures, salvage, and overhaul. Emergency medical responses shall be provided with and include medical acts such as defibrillation, epinephrine, naloxone, first aid, CPR, and other delegated acts according to our firefighter medical training program and ambulance assistance services. We also assist police services with non-emergency and emergency situations where they require fire department equipment and our specialized skills that we have to assist them in mitigating their incidents. Our automatic aid response services are assistance that dispatch automatically to our department by contractual agreements between two communities. Services are provided in accordance with our automatic aid agreements approved by the council. Our mutual aid responses, assistances where we're dispatched because the home fire department doesn't have enough resources required, whether it be manpower, apparatus, specialized resources, and they're contracted. It's a contractual agreement between two of the communities. These services shall be provided in accordance with the Durham Region Service and Mutual Aid Agreement. Our public assistance services, these are services we provide to the public, whether they're emergency or non-emergency situations for which the fire department has equipment, specialized skills, and training to help mitigate those perceived instances. So NFPA 1670 is a standard on operations and training of specialized rescue. Specialized rescue includes multiple disciplines such as water rescue, auto-X, trench, and the list goes on. Each specialized discipline is broken into 3 levels of responses that a fire service may operate under. The first level is an awareness level. This includes a scene size up, site control, site management, hazard identification, and basic search and removal of readily accessible victims. At this level, you cannot enter the rescue operations. Operations level is the second level. The ability to complete the following include all abilities within the awareness level, identifying the operational capability needed to conduct operations safely and effectively. This is hazard specific, so every hazard, every discipline has different PPE that's required. Establish training levels for personnel based on risk assessment, availability of the resources, and specialized equipment for the different types of rescues that they'll be performing, whether it's a water rescue, trench rescue, or the technical level is the third and last level. This is the most in-depth level. It includes the abilities listed in the awareness level, the operations level, and the ability to perform technical rescues, the ability to manage and oversee technical rescues while minimizing the threats to the rescuer. And the technical rescuer has an in-depth knowledge, skills, and training to that specified discipline. As well, rescues are trained and equipped to enter the immediate hazard zone, which we recognize as the hot zone. The rescuers are trained and equipped with specialized equipment and to be able to perform the rescues. Specialized rescues are considered high risk, low frequency events, meaning they don't happen very often, but they're very, very dangerous. Training to high standards are paramount to be successful in the outcomes. This is an example of in all of our size ups, and as you know, in all those levels, we are able to create a hazard control zone. And as we mentioned, the hot zone is immediately around the hazard area. Then you have a warm zone and cold zone. The safer it is, the further you go out. Vehicle collision services, our fire service responds to vehicle collisions, and they provide stabilization of the scene, stabilization of the individual, and preventing further injury, and extricating of trapped persons. They also mitigate adverse effects to the natural environment. Highway incident services, we respond to the 401 and provincial highways, and these responses are, and the costs with the department responses to provincial highways shall be recovered in accordance with the applicable provincial services agreements. As I mentioned earlier, the fire specialized rescue disciplines for Ajax. These are the specialized services that we conduct at different levels. Confined space, elevator, flood, heavy urban search and rescue, swift water and trench. We are at the awareness level for all these rescues. Hazardous materials, we're at an operations level. Auto X and highway. Ice rescue, rope rescue, and surface water rescue, we're at the technicians level. Any questions?
Thank you for that report. We have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you very much for that report. Can you tell me the last time the bylaw was updated? It's maybe an unfair question because I don't remember.
Yeah. It's been, through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, it's been a long time.
I was going to say the world has changed a lot. How often would this need to be updated? Do you know? Maybe it's an unfair question, and I apologize, but
through the chair, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's every 5 years, roughly. Okay. It should be reviewed, not that it has to be redone.
Right.
But
because a lot can happen in 5 years in a town, right?
With fire in general, technology and things have changed so much in the past 15 years.
Yeah, 100%.
Massive changes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the presentation. Can you please just explain the difference between automatic aid and mutual aid?
Through the chair, sure. Automatic aid is an agreement where we are sent automatically. A good example is our highway responses. It's set up so that if Ajax is closer to get to that response eastbound or westbound towards Pickering than what Pickering would be, we would go look after the scene, and once the host department gets there, they would take it over and run that scene. With mutual aid, the host department, if it was us, for example, if we ran out of manpower, we could request help from another department. The example that someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Councillor Henry, about high rises. If we needed more manpower to attack a high rise fire, because it does take a lot of people, we would exhaust our resources and then reach out to another department.
Okay. So depending on the situation, mutual aid is not immediate.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then on slide 21, when you talk about Ajax Fire Specialized Rescue Disciplines and the awareness level items, so floodwater response, I'm just curious, as we are, a lakeside municipality, why we would stop at awareness level?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, some of these, we're just not at that stage yet. Floodwater is a relatively new discipline under NFPA. So although we may have been doing some of these at a higher level, our certification level, it has only reached that. some of the water responses as well, the disciplines are relatively new, like, and through the NFPA, new NFPA certifications, which that's our standard that we go by, we are catching up to certifications. more or
Okay,
less.
so that is what is expected.
In the future, we look to move into a higher level in some of these areas.
Okay, great. So let's say something happened, a catastrophe happened, and you are awareness level. So who would we call? What would happen?
So through the chair, we hope to have that specialized agreement with Oshawa, and they have higher levels in different areas. We can also reach out to the Ontario Emergency Operations Center, which is provincial, and for large emergencies we can request outside agencies to help as well, which we've had that in the past with some of the past floods years ago, as well as a recent trench event we had where we just don't have the manpower, the
Right.
equipment. We reach out to the province and request help.
Okay, thank you. I think I remember the trench episode. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So am I correct that awareness level, operational level, and then technical level, that's the order?
Correct.
And I guess to Councillor Bauer's point, I was looking at the elevator rescue. And again, we go back to the buildings, and all the buildings we're putting in 60 stories. If we're not at that level, when are we looking at getting to the next level for that specific elevator rescue? Do we know?
Through the chair, Councillor Henry, there are steps to move that we have to get through to increase some of these levels. Elevator for one. There's some other disciplines you need to have technical abilities in. Rope rescue being one of the core specialized rescues. We have in recent years just become technical rescuers in rope. So natural progression with intensification and the high rises that are being built, we recognize that elevator rescue, we do need to increase our levels, and this would be part of our master fire plan implementation to increase some of the levels in some of these specialized rescue disciplines.
And how long would that take?
Depends on the type of discipline. Some disciplines, for example, heavy urban search and rescue, takes an extensive amount of training, equipment knowledge, and practice. Some of the not so intense ones, elevator rescue, for example, it's just time and commitment to get all of our technical rescuers certified.
For instance, let's stay with the elevator rescue one. As you can see, I'm homing in on that.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking, 6 months, a year to have everyone complete this?
Through the chair, we're assessing that actually as we speak for a timeline on how long that would take. But we're not looking at years.
We're not looking at years?
No.
Okay, so when the fire master plan comes back before council, could I ask that question at that time? Would there be a better timeline on this one in particular?
I could defer that to our fire chief.
Chief?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry. One thing as well, just going to this elevator area, we've actually applied for a grant to provide us funding for the training of that. So we're hoping that we're successful in that grant, and that'll help to roll forward our program to get everybody trained in the department. And it would be in partnership, I believe, with Durham College. Is it, Deputy Kimball? Yeah, with Durham College. So we have applied for a grant. The grant would then cover a lot of our training costs. And then once we get everybody trained to the level that's required and or certified, because the province is still rolling out some of the certification requirements for technical rescue, then we would then do the update to the bylaw. At that point, we'll get everybody trained, certified if required, and then roll out an update to the bylaw. But it's something that in my report that I've been looking at hasn't been addressed at this time, But because we have applied for that grant, we're hoping that we'll have some good news before that report even comes forward.
And is that something that, is this is this why it hasn't been done thus far? Is it a fee cost that have prohibited from the next level, obtaining the next level? Is that what the issue's been?
No, I don't think it's a fee cost per se. It's just Ontario's gone through a lot of changes over the past number of years, and now Ontario has fully adopted the NFPA standards, so that provides a lot of structure for moving forward and doing this in a more professional manner. And so because of that, fire departments are following suit, and then also the province is rolling out the skills development and testing for these specific technical rescue disciplines.
Can I ask, because we've talked a lot about Oshawa and leaning on them in certain cases, how far are we away from the levels of certification they have in multiple sections as compared to us? Are we that far away?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, we're not that far away per se, especially because, as the deputy alluded to, the technical rope rescue does lead into a lot of other areas. But when you're looking at the level of services that can be provided, for instance, confined space, we're not that far away from rolling out confined space to, say, an operations level. It's just a matter of planning out to making sure that, that here are the timelines for the training, here's the timelines for the certification, all that. And also, if there are costs involved, we would obviously have to bring that forward through our operating or capital budget processes.
Excellent. I have some other questions, but I'm going to take it offline and have a meeting with you privately to ask them. Thank you. I much appreciate it.
Thank you. Just very quick comment. You still call yourselves Ajax Fire, but it looks like you do way more than just fire. And I would beg to, I'd argue that you actually do more emergency services than less fire. So perhaps we need to rebrand you because, on behalf of council, you are all doing amazing work in keeping us safe, and we appreciate command as well as everyone on the front line. So please extend our thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council.
So I need someone to move the report, please. We have Councillor Bauer, and we will start the vote. Perfect. Then all I need, there's no closed report. All I need is a motion to adjourn. We have Regional Councillor Crawford. See how much faster these meetings go when it's just us ladies? Two more vote, me. And we need one more vote. Thank you very much. Everyone have a fantastic day.